See, at best, when we talk about God, we're pretty much weaklings at it. You know, when we try to do something in his name, we're kind of okay with it. As long as it doesn't put us in too bad of a position, right? If it doesn't embarrass us too much, if it doesn't take too much out of our pocket, if it doesn't irritate us or agonize us too much, we're okay with doing God's work. It's okay. Just don't push it to the limit. We don't like getting pushed to the limit. But you got to understand that Jesus was different. You notice that in all these scriptures, you don't hear about Jesus stumbling or mumbling or grumbling or saying, hey, you know what? These people are not worth this. What am I doing here? This really hurts. Why not bother these people? You don't see Jesus doing anything like calling down legions of angels and saying, you know what, just smite all these people. Not enough of them. You don't see that. He kept his eye on God the Father, and he didn't turn back. He was determined to complete the task that God brought him to, and he didn't waver. His victorious cry, "It is finished," reveals a couple of things that we should look at a little closer. The first thing is that the suffering of Jesus is finished. I don't know if you realize how brutal that sentence was. You know, when the Passion of the Christ came out, people said, well, that's too brutal. I don't know how you can show that in a movie. But that was the actual way people were beaten, ridiculed, and most of the time on that cross was the accusations, which was interesting. They would put down what it is that you were being crucified for. It was a message. It wasn't just a punishment. It was a message to everybody. They knew what happened, why you were there, and that you weren't coming down anytime soon. Not at least unless you were dead. You know, well before his crucifixion, the prophet Isaiah foretold of his suffering. It was the will of the Lord to bruise him. He has put him to grief. When he makes himself an offering for sin, we shall see his offspring. He shall prolong his days. The will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. That is from Isaiah 53:10. God's purpose for Jesus was to suffer and become the substitution for us. The substitutionary sacrifice for the penalty of sin. The penalty of sin is death. We talked about sin before. As Christians, we get numb to hearing the word sin. But sin is a corrosion. It eats away at you. It's a corruption of what you were meant to be. And God didn't want you to be sitting in corruption. He didn't want you to be in that kind of a place. So he sent Jesus Christ to pay for the things that we've done. When Jesus died upon that cross, he took all the sin and suffering that we deserved and he paid for it. But you know, what's interesting is that his suffering started way before he even got to the cross. Have you ever read anything about him? You can read in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. They talk about his life. And what's interesting is that when you hear about his life, you realize that somehow he wasn't able to please everyone. Is there anybody in here that likes to please everybody? Yeah? Anyone likes being liked? Yeah, everybody likes being liked. Unfortunately, Jesus didn't have that luxury, did he? You see, to the Orthodox community, we might call those people the conservatives today, right? He was too liberal. To the liberal community, he was too conservative. People questioned his motive for healing people. They questioned his theology, his politics, his character. He was misunderstood by many and only accepted by basically a few people. And in the end, who's left? Mom. You ever noticed that? Well, it's rough when mom's not around. But really, in the end, it was mom and his aunt. A couple of his female disciples were there. All these tough, big, bad, brawling fishermen and zealots and tax collectors and all these people are nowhere to be found, with the exception of maybe John, the disciple he loved. And they're watching from a distance. They're not right there. So where's Peter? Where's this guy that pulled out the sword and was going to whack some heads and I'm going to go through to the death? All that stuff that was supposed to happen, he suffered. All of the people that he had poured years of his life into, teaching them, showing them things.